Ed Harris has led a distinguished career both on stage and in film. His performances in movies such as The Right Stuff, Apollo 13, and The Truman Show have garnered him both critical acclaim and public accolades. Take a look at this montage of some of his work.
I want this mark all the way back to Earth with time to spare. We never lost an American in space. We're sure as hell not going to lose one on my watch. Failure is not an option.
Come on, breathe, baby. God damn it, breathe. God damn it, you bitch! You never backed away from anything in your life! Now fight! 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 Right now! Do it! Fight, God damn it! Fight!
If you don't want the vice president or the TV networks or anybody else to come into the house, then that's it, as far as I'm concerned. They are not coming in. And I will back you up all the way 100% on this, and you tell them that. It's the leads. The whole thing is the leads. You understand me? You can't sell to avoid. You got to get a goddamn person. You get a lead, you get a person. I'll go in there and sell him, huh? Otherwise, what do they want from my life? Increase the win. Increase the win! I am telling you, for the last... How close is it? Very close. Capsize him. Tip him over. Damn you, Crypto!
No, you can't. His tidings up to the boat.
Shut up!
He's gonna drown. He doesn't even care.
Do it. Do it!
John, sooner or later, sooner, I think, we're going to learn the lesson that's been learned by everyone who's ever gotten close to Richard Nixon. That he's the darkness, reaching out for the darkness.
These days, Harris has taken on a new role. Pollock has been a 10-year labor of love for him, and it marks his directorial debut. Harris also stars in the film as the iconoclastic American artist Jackson Pollock, and here is a look at the film.
You've done it, Pollock. You've cracked it wide open.
I am pleased to welcome Ed Harris back to this table. First of all, congratulations.
Thanks,
It's
Charlie.
a great film.
Thank
It's a
you.
terrific film. Because it is, I mean, you seem to embody, I didn't obviously know Jackson Pollock, but
Yeah.
you seem to embody, even look like Jackson Pollock. And I've
Well-
done an hour show, as you know, with Kurt Varnado
Yeah.
at MoMA about his work.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was actually the inception of this whole thing. Was my father was working at the Chicago Art Institute, and he sent me Jeffrey Potter's oral biography of Pollock called To a Violent Grave for my birthday, 1986. And that's when I first started reading about this guy. And the only reason he sent it to me was there was a picture of Pollock on the cover, and there was some physical resemblance there. But you know,
He sent you the book because of the physical resemblance?
Yeah. And then he said, "Dear, happy birthday. You might be interested in this.
In an earlier life, you were a painter.
Maybe there's a film in here somewhere," basically,
Yeah.
he was saying.
Did you know his art at all? I mean,
I was not familiar with it.
And so you read this biography. You read it?
I read it, yeah.
And then you said, man, this is a story.
It seemed very interesting to me. I read another one the following year because he sent me another one on my birthday in 1987. And I got more and more involved with it. And then the Nafy Smith book, which won the Pulitzer Prize, came out. And I actually had a connection with Stephen Nafy.
Yeah.
But anyway, one thing led to another. And I found out a young man named James Trezor, who's credited as one of the producers on the film, had bought the rights to the Nafy Smith Pulitzer Prize winning biography on Pollock, and I got aligned with him in '91 and began to work on the film.
How many years?
You know, 9, I guess.
Yeah.
8, or, a little bit before that, but basically 9.
Why did you give it so much?
Well, Charlie, the more I read about this individual, I guess, the more certain things hit home. I was also at a point in my career. I just turned 40 in 1990, and I think there was probably a part of me wanted to take a little bit more responsibility for what I was doing and the kind of roles I wanted to play. And this guy seemed like a fascinating, complex character to me, as well as being an important person in American culture in terms of modern art and where he kind of took it. And but the more I read about him, you know, here was a man who was not adapted very well socially. I mean, he was almost pathologically shy on some level, at least in his early years, and he had a very bad drinking problem. He had an interesting early home life. And he finds this way of expressing himself, painting, you know, which his older brother had done, his eldest brother, who was 10 years older than he was. And he begins to explore this, and suddenly, you know, the world starts making a little bit more sense to him, and he's got a way of expressing himself that means something, you know, that is a lot more eloquent, perhaps, even though it's frustrating to him, than trying to deal with people on some level. And he pursues it, goes to school, studies with Benton, etc. And throughout all this, he's persisting, and he's determined to make it his own, and to have this thing that he's discovering become something that is nothing but him, you know, and it becomes this pure thing. I mean, I'm not saying he wasn't aware of art, where art movements had come from prior to that, but ultimately he broke out of all that, and he's truly creating. I think when he started painting on the floor and off the canvas, it freed him up. He's pouring himself out there, and I think at the best times connected to the most distant star in the deepest part of the middle of the earth, and he's doing it. It's not about anything other than getting it out, creating expression, and it's beautiful. And then, unfortunately, it gets recognized.
And what does that do to him?
Just totally screws him up.
He can't get enough of it.
Well, he was desperate for attention, you know, for approval, for recognition. And when he got it, I think he probably, you know, I think he probably mistook it for love or something. And when he got it, he realized it was a far cry from that, and it brought him no peace, no solace, no comfort. Probably satisfied his ego a little bit, but that didn't last too long. You know, plus he had found this way of painting, and although ridiculed for it at first, you know, was ultimately accepted and bought, you know, in a big article in Life magazine. But he also didn't want to keep painting that way. He kind of reached its peak, you know, and there was pressure probably to keep painting that way. He did some great stuff in '51 and '52 with, you know, just black paint, based pretty much on raw canvas.
Right.
So remember those
Sure.
paintings, which are really pretty glorious, you know. But after that, he was really looking, man. When you went to the retrospective, the show you did, that last room there, which is maybe the last dozen paintings he did or something, the styles are all over the place. I mean, he's really trying to find out what to say now, and he can't. And he's drinking more, and, you know, last year and a half of his life, he basically didn't paint at all.
Are you glad you did this?
I'm really glad I did it. You know, I put a lot into it. It occupied my mind and heart for a long time. I'm really proud of the movie. You know, I'm really proud of all the people that worked on it too, and the commitment that they had to it. And, you know, if anything, I was afraid it wasn't going to work. You know, especially when I decided to direct this thing, I said, I just want to have it work as a film.
Right.
I don't want to look at it and go, yeah, some of it's good, but it doesn't work. And but to me, it does hold together.
And so how do you
does
define work?
I just mean it's like looking at a painting.
Yeah.
You know, it either works for you or it doesn't. It either has harmony and rhythm and cohesion, or there's something that doesn't jive. You know.
Yeah. Take a look at this. This is a scene from the film. Jackson Pollock.
Which one are you showing?
That one. I'm not sure I'm finished with it.
I don't think you should touch it.
How good an artist was Jackson Pollock?
You mean ultimately,
Yeah.
or? I think he was great. I mean, I think he was great, unbelievably fine. I think he was one of the best American artists we've had, you know. I think one of the things that the retrospective did was to really give people a chance to see his art grow. I mean, 160 works in there, you know. And some of the early stuff is pretty extraordinary. Depends. Some people don't like it. I happen to like it.
The interesting thing about him, too, I mean, I know people that think, I mean, there are lots of very smart people who believe he's, you know, the top rank of great American artist of the second half of the 20th century.
I certainly...
Top rank.
Yeah. Top rank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great American artist of the second half of the 20th
I certainly
century.
feel that way myself.
Yeah. roll tape. Well, take a look at this, just because if you haven't seen Jackson Pollock, this is a conversation I did with Kirk Varnadoe, Chief Curator of the Museum of Modern Art, and he'll talk about it. Here it is. What was it he did that was so powerful?
Well, I think the central innovation in Pollock's art, the thing that opened up the most doors for the most artists, his signature moment, was when he decided to stop painting on the wall, to lay canvas on the floor, and instead of operating with a brush, to pour paint directly onto the canvas. And at the same time that he used this method of creating painting, he abandoned many of the things that people look for in painting. No figuration, no horizon, no sense of up or down even normally. He wound up with a type of painting that was abstract in a way paintings hadn't been abstract before, that cast you into a sea of heaving paint that had been poured, dripped, splattered onto the floor. And many people saw this as utter and complete chaos or working with accident. Other people saw it as incredibly liberating and energetic. But it's that move to the floor, the move to liquid paint, and the rejection of traditional figuration and composition which made Pollock such a radical.
Why did he do it?
Why is always a huge question, and there isn't any central event in his life that would trigger it. It's not like you can find a moment that suggests why he would do it. We know from the beginning that he had an iron will to be an artist. Even when he was told he had no talent, even when he couldn't compete with other more facile, more gifted students around him, he knew he wanted to make of his life the life of an artist. It was a way of getting control. And no matter how chaotic his life got, no matter how much he was a drunk and being picked up at police stations, he didn't drink in the studio, and the studio became the place where he could exercise a kind of control he didn't have elsewhere in his life.
Kirk Varnadoe.
Very eloquent.
Very eloquent guy.
Yeah.
How did you prepare for this? We're going to see another, in the sense of the drip method and, and what you did to get inside.
Well, I mean, you know, I immersed myself in the subject matter.
Yes,
I read
you
everything
did.
I could. I met people that knew him. I began to paint in the, you know, early on in the 90s and built a studio so I could paint on larger and larger surfaces. And I didn't take any art lessons per se, but I began to experiment with different utensils, different implements, different viscosity of paint, you know, different size canvas. And I never tried to, the only painting, I painted one painting that was in that earlier shot as a figurative painting of a woman with this heads behind her, but that was a Pollock. But I wasn't never trying to paint a particular Pollock. I was really more concerned with trying to get to a place where I could consider myself a painter, where I could take an empty canvas and have paint and brushes or whatever, sticks, and create something on this blank space that had some meaning to me and some harmony. I'm not saying I even succeeded, but the effort to do that really gave me an inkling and a feeling of what it would be like to live one's life as a painter, which is a fairly, it's a solitary, wonderful way to spend time, but it could also be tremendously frightening, especially if you couldn't make it work, if you don't know what to say, or if you're copying somebody, or if you can't find your own mode, or you're working, and you can't get the painting to work. Now, Lee Krasner, his wife, had a big problem with painting in the kind of the late 40s, or not the early to mid 40s, before they moved to Long Island. She was very frustrated with her work, you know.
And later she's
yeah,
man, some very good,
some great stuff.
Did some great stuff. Yeah. You even went to the length to, you changed cigarette brands.
No, I didn't. That's
a myth.
I've always been smoking Camels, unfortunately.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. Did you sleep in his bed?
Well, Helen Harrison, who runs the Pollock Krasner House, you know,
right, yeah,
which is a study center and where we shot the exteriors. I'd gone out there a number of times before we began filming, just in terms of research, and she said I could sleep in the room if I wanted to. You know, I was hoping for some kind of visitation or something, but I had
visitation.
Basically had a pretty good night's sleep. That was it.
No visitation took place. Jackson didn't call you in the middle of the night.
No, he's probably
do the right thing, Ed. Do the right thing.
Why are you wasting your time?
No, you're not getting it. I've seen you. You're still. It was more difficult than that. It was different than that. It was stranger.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. What was the most difficult thing about making the movie once you started to? Once you did all your preparation, once you hired your actors, once you
had your
budget.
The pre-production was tough, but and I was really excited about the paintings themselves, because I didn't know how we were going to recreate the paintings. I had talked to Kirk, you know, at the museum where he was actually getting permission. I was getting permission from individual owners of the paintings to film them, and we were going to try to CGI them into the film.
Right.
And I realized that would be ridiculous because they need to be around all the time. Pollock lived with his work when he wasn't showing it. And Mark Friedberg, who was the production designer, said, "Look, I can get the best scenic artists, and we can recreate these paintings." And I said, "You're going to be able to recreate Lavender Mist or Number 32, I think it was the painting that Kirk was sitting in front of." And he said, "Yeah, I think we can do that." And I walked into the Armory in Brooklyn where we were building the sets. I saw this group of artists over in the corner. I walked over there and they had their little 8x10 images of Pollock paintings. They had the canvas cut to the right size, whether it was 4x6 or 12 by whatever. And they had all the colors mixed up very precisely as best they can to these reproductions. And they standing there, doing line by line, recreating these things. I mean, and did a marvelous job. I mean, you put them up against the Pollock, obviously, they're not going to have the same vitality, same energy, but in terms of cinematically, they work beautifully, and I was really thrilled to see that. But the toughest thing about making it was the financial time pressure on a daily basis.
You spent more time on a daily basis, raising the money and then...
filming, shooting day to day, never getting your day, never getting the shots, all the scenes that were planned for that day.
Because you had, did you have enough money to make the movie you wanted to make?
Ultimately.
Ultimately.
Because we made it.
Yeah. So you made the movie you wanted to make.
Yeah,
in other words, what we will see on the screen when this film opens, next week?
Yeah, 16th.
16th, February 16th.
Yeah.
What we'll see on the screen is the movie you wanted to make.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes? I mean, you hesitant or not?
No, there were some things I would have liked to have shot that I didn't shoot.
Yeah.
But in terms, I also like the fact that, hey, it's an independent film. I'm working within certain limitations. So yes, it's the film that was meant to be made. I'll put it that way, and I'm really proud of it. So the things that I didn't shoot are not necessary to this film. I don't miss them.
Roll tape. I want to come right back to this. Here's another scene from Jackson Pollock. Do you wish you had someone else you felt passionate about to make a movie about, like you did about Pollock? I mean, in the end, is that a...
Right now, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I trust that having done this and gone through this experience for myself, and was a major decision, personal decision, to direct the thing myself. I had never planned on doing that, you know. But having done that, and I don't need to know right now what it is, but I know that there will be something that I find that occurs to me, that the door has been opened, that if I get an idea or read something that's very special to me that I really feel the need to put out there, I look forward to doing it, or trying to.
Are you going to start painting? Have you become a painter?
I wouldn't say I've become a painter, but I look forward to getting back to painting a little bit. I don't know if I will or not. You know, I haven't painted much since the movie ended, really, because I haven't had the time. And the thing is, I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and painting really takes time. It's not like you go out there for an hour or two. You know, you got to give yourself over to it. You really have to spend the hours and
it's like music.
Commit yourself to it. You know, so we'll see. If not in the immediate future, hopefully down the road a piece. But I carry like watercolors around with me, and you know, I sketch a little bit. So I keep my hand in it just to keep my eyes open a little bit. But I haven't painted anything large in a while.
If I said to you in the end, why is Jackson Pollock deserving of a film by Ed Harris, you would say?
Why is Jackson Pollock deserving of a film by Ed Harris?
Because Harris had a
you know why? Because Jackson tried. He didn't give up till the very end. He kept working at what he wanted to do until he couldn't do it anymore.
What was his demon? I mean, alcohol was the result of his demon.
Yes. I don't know, Charlie. I mean, I think he was probably a manic depressive, you know. I think he had maybe a chemical imbalance psychologically. I think he was the youngest of 5 boys. I think he was basically fatherless. I mean, his dad, who was a good guy and a hard worker and sent money back to the family, basically left home when he was 10. I just think he really didn't know where he fit in the world, and was really an insecure individual, as a man and as a human being. And his relationships with women were very strange. His relationship with his mother, I mean, she was both mother and father to him in some way, which has to cause some confusion. And then this need to be important, this need to matter, that drove him as well.
Drives you too?
Well, it used to really drive me. I mean, when I was a kid, when I was growing up playing sports, and when I decided to act in the first place, it was because the only closest thing I could think of to scoring a touchdown would be to have people stand up and applaud at the end of a play, I mean, that was kind of the genesis of, but, hopefully, God, I hope it's become something more than that. I mean, it really is, it's something I really love to do, and that it keeps opening me up, you know what I mean? I really look at it as a revelatory process and not as a manipulative imposition. I'm not trying to force something. It's a constant thing of exploration, and that keeps me excited about it,
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure, Charlie. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Cayce Television Online. I'm Charles Thomas Cayce, Executive Director of the Association for Research and Enlightenment, the ARE, and the Edgar Cayce Foundation. I'm coming to you from the membership room in our headquarters in Virginia Beach, Virginia. This is ARE's 75th year of service. I'm very excited about being able to communicate with you in this new manner. Using our new online TV site, you're able to view a show or video from anywhere in the world at any time that's best for you. Now here's John Van Alken to tell you more about today's program.
In today's show, Carla's going to give us some insights into the Edgar Cayce readings, and Charles Thomas Cayce is going to interview Edgar Evans Cayce, Edgar Cayce's son.
Hi, I'm Carla Siegschlag, one of the directors here at ARE headquarters in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and this is the In the News segment of our show. In this segment, we look at current events and see how they fit with Edgar Cayce's prophecies. It's really quite amazing how accurate Cayce was about future events. For example, in May of 1926, he predicted the now well-known El Niño and La Niña water currents that have been changing long-standing weather patterns today. Amazingly, in April of 1941, he predicted the horrific earthquake that occurred in December of 2004 in the Indian Ocean, causing a devastating tsunami. In that reading, 63 years ago, he said, "Watch for strifes in the Indian Ocean. You say that these are of the sea. Yes, for there shall the breaking up be." How does one see such events so far in advance of them actually occurring? Are life events known at some higher level of perception that Cayce tapped into and conveyed to us? Could we tap into this level? Cayce said yes. We can and we should try to become more aware of the rhythms of nature and the flow of life's great current. Another important question is, how can we help those who suffer from the effects of these weather changes and the movement of the tectonic plates? Our association has built a worldwide prayer website that's open to all nationalities, all faiths, and all people. It's a place where people from around the world can come together in prayer. You can join us in prayer at this website, and the address is www.worldprayergroup.org. It's easy to use. Visit the site and join with us in prayer for all. Now here's a reading that Cayce actually received when he personally envisioned earth changes in the year 2158. Quite a ways off from today, isn't it? But the advice in this reading may be helpful to us today. That the periods from the material angle are visioned are to come to pass matters not to the soul. But do thy duty today. Tomorrow will care for itself. These changes in the earth will come to pass, for the time and the times and half-times are at an end, and there begin those periods for the readjustments. For how hath he given? The righteous shall inherit the earth. Hast thou, my brethren, a heritage in the earth? The Revelation says that in the latter days evil will be bound for 1,000 years, and the world will enter a golden age. And Cayce was asked, what can I do to help bring about the new age? And he answered, you will have to practice it in your own life. Yes, we don't just get to ride into the new age. To truly participate in the coming age of light and love, we have to practice it in our lives each day. Well, that's in the news for this show. See you next time. Visit us at our World Prayer Group site. Its address is www.worldprayergroup.org.
Edgar Evans, many people must ask you what it was like to have had a psychic like Edgar Cayce for a father. Tell us what that was like.
You're right. A lot of people have asked that question. But if you think of it, it wasn't that much different from any other family. You see, Dad only gave these readings 15 to 30 minutes at a time, once or twice a day. And a lot of weeks he didn't have but 2 or 3 readings a week. And the rest of the time he was a very normal person. He didn't remember anything that he said during these readings. So he was not that much different. Because of 99% of the time he was out in the garden, fishing, or doing carpentry work, or doing, normal tasks.
Did you ever sit in on any of those readings? What were they like?
Well, a reading, I guess there's not that many people around now that ever saw him do a reading. But he would simply lie down on a cot or a bed or a sofa. He would relax. Usually he'd cross his hands over his stomach and lay back. If he had a tie, he'd loosen the tie. Sometimes he'd loosen the shoelaces. And he would just lay back and relax. Mother would watch his face, and when his eyelids would start to flicker a little bit, she'd know that he was in this self-induced hypnotic trance or self-induced sleep. And then she would give him the suggestion for the reading. If it was a physical reading, it was one suggestion. A life reading, it was a different suggestion. And then he would lie there just a few minutes. He'd mumble. It's like he was repeating some of the things she said. And then he would say in his normal voice. I never heard him give a reading that he wasn't speaking in his normal voice. He would say, usually the suggestion for a reading was, you will have before you the body of so-and-so, who is at, if he was in this room, she would say in this room, or if he was somewhere else, she would say in, an apartment in New York, in a hotel in Kalamazoo, and a certain address, and how it could be anywhere. It didn't matter. All he had to know was the person's name and where he was at the time of the reading.
You heard dozens, hundreds of these readings?
Yeah, you asked me how I've heard my own, of course, and I used to sit in a lot on, as I was growing up, on other people's readings.
And I've heard you tell a story about a reading being given for a man who was in New York City, and that was startling even for you as you heard the reading and then heard what happened during the reading.
Yeah, I remember that one real well. Dad had this reading on a person who was supposed to be in New York at his apartment when the reading was given. And Mother gave him a suggestion, said, you will have before you the body of so-and-so who is at this address in New York. Dad lay there a few minutes and he said, he's not here. He said, he's on a bus coming across town. It was a traffic accident and the bus is late, but he'll be here in a few minutes. We'll wait. He lay there for about 15 minutes, didn't say a word. All of a sudden, he said, he's come in now. He proceeded to give the reading. When he said he's come in now, my brother, he then got up and went in the other room and called the man on the phone. The man said, that's exactly right. I knew I was supposed to be in my apartment. I was on the way there on a bus, and there was a lot of traffic, and the bus was late, and I just this minute walked in. Now, there's a beautiful piece of clairvoyance that I don't think anybody could have anticipated.
Right.
One of the sources of the reading.
Remember other stories like that, Edgar Evans?
I remember one about a parrot. there was a family named Anderson that used to live at the beach, and they had a parrot. I think it was an African gray parrot. The story was it came off a German submarine. I don't know whether that was true or not, but the parrot was really a talker. He could whistle and holler. He'd whistle at all the girls that went by. He'd whistle and talk and carry on, and Dad enjoyed that. And the parrot was really friendly with him. He would sit on his shoulder and he could rub his beak, and anybody else, I think he'd bite him. But they used to let him keep the parrot up at our house for a while. And one afternoon, I guess it was almost dusk, Dad had the parrot. He let him out of his cage, and there was a lamp in the living room that had a curved shade like that, and Polly was sitting up on the curved shade, and a couple of people came to the door for a reading. And Dad was somewhere else in the house, and Mother let him in and said, "Sit down, Dad will be in just a minute." And they sat down in the living room. It was kind of dark, the lights went on, and Polly said, "Hello." And they didn't know where, we didn't see anything, you know. And they were kind of startled, and Polly said, "What you want?" And Mother caught them as they were going out the door. They looked kind of sheepish when they saw it was a parrot and wasn't Dad floating around the air.
Right.
But I know that was a funny story.